morning. Good morning. If I could have everyone take their seats. Good morning. Good morning. If I could have everyone take their seats, we'd like to get started. We know everybody's got busy schedules and we're going to try to stay on time. So, thank you. Thank you. Well, welcome. Welcome to the first Q in quite some time, huh? Yeah. There's been some changes too since the last time there was a Q. So one of the first things is we are actually live streaming today. So face the cameras and wave because you're all online. And then there's been some changes in our staff as well. There's been some retirements over the past year and a half, as well as, unfortunately, we lost one of our employees to COVID. So what you'll notice on the back of your agendas for today, we have photos of our entire staff in our department so that you can recognize the new faces. They're all wandering about here. I don't believe we put phone numbers on because we want you to go and, oh, we did put phone numbers. Okay, so you can call them anytime. And those are your business representatives for retention and expansion of operations within the county. So please feel free to give them a call, get to know them well. They're just amazing people. So it's my pleasure to welcome you, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If I can get everybody to stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, and I do want to make a quick presentation of our new director for the Department of Aviation and Economic Resources. As you know, Rick, you all knew Rick, and he retired. Cyrus, if you could just stand and let everybody see you so they know. Okay. So Rick, of course, did an amazing job, but we're excited about what's going to be happening with Cyrus. And I've only had a few months with him so far, but it's been a ton of fun. Okay, and I'd like to also take a moment to recognize a few people within our audience. We have Bill O'Connor, the Orange City Council, over there. Okay, Chair Jeff Brower is here from the county. Ernie Ordino from Congressman Waltz's office. Will Roberts from Tax Collector's Office. Dev Denny's, formerly with the council. Okay. Suzanne Conchin, the Deputy Manager for the county. Okay. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my good friend Keith Norden, the President of Team Volusia. As you know, Keith, Team Volusia does the recruitment for the county, and our department does the retention and expansion, and it's turned out to be a great marriage. So we're excited about that. Okay, so with that, well, same thing. With that, in your agenda, it has me talking about the quarterly report, but I'm taking a little diversion because we have the winners of the Carns Foundation Innovation Challenge here today, and it gives us an opportunity to celebrate some of the entrepreneurship and creativity within our community. The Carns Foundation was established in 2003 by Dr. James Carns. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be with us today, but it identifies creative students with the entrepreneurial potential and helps them succeed through mentorship and financial assistance. Each year, the foundation co-sponsors the Innovation Challenge, where students from the colleges, local colleges and universities pitch their ideas to potential investors and compete for cash prizes. It's a great experience for all of them that participate because they get the exposure and they get to understand the business community and how to really push their product. So I'm going to ask them all to please come up and give us a brief explanation of what their projects were and where they and who they are. So, if we can just stand here, you can just pass the mic. If all of you can stand, that'd be great.
My name is Maximus Landers. This is my partner, Sandra Patel. So our idea that we presented at the Carns Foundation Innovation Challenge is our app, Handybird. So it's an on-demand home service app that connects people like plumbers. It connects people like plumbers and electricians to homeowners and people in need. It's on demand, so you go into the app, you plug in, it's a simple one-page form you fill out, and people will be there within an hour to fill your request. We're very excited to be working here within the community at the Volusia County Business Incubator. It's a great program. We've already met a lot of people there that have helped us. Our mentor, Connie Garcon. We had the privilege of working with her for a year here to help develop our business and plan. And we've also met a lot of people in the Business Incubator. Another person, Chantur from Aerospace Technologies, has helped us a lot learning about app development and business planning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lou Paris, the director of the Prince Entrepreneurship Program at Stetson University. I'll give you a brief word about our program and how this, the Carns Foundation has put on something phenomenal for the students. Imagine the experience that these students are gaining by competing. I tell everyone that the pitch competition itself is only about 20% of the experience. 80% of it is all the work that happens before in preparation to make it to that event. The feedback that we get from the incubator, the feedback that we get from the Carns Foundation on the presentation of the idea is phenomenal. It really helps the students advance. And I couldn't be more prouder of the quality of the event and the input that the students put in. And as for the program itself, Stetson, we're a brand new program. We have been around for 4 years, and we're operating out of 2 offices. So my colleague, Dr. Taylor, and I we don't have a physical space, you know, like many other universities. It's basically our offices. And I'm going to brag on Kevin 1 second. We were able to recruit him from Chicago. You know Groupon? You know, so the engineering brains behind Groupon is in this room right now. So it's a big deal. It is a big deal that we're able to recruit that level of, that caliber of person to work with us. So it's something that we're very proud of and will continue to grow. I'll represent quickly Kendall. Imagine I'm a woman now. So Kendall is second place at the competition. Kendall would have been with us, however, she had to travel on business, her business idea, and she's returning. She'll be landing here in 2 hours or so. Because she was in Atlanta you'll hear about it eventually. I think beginning of next year you'll hear. We're under NDA, so we cannot say a whole lot, but it's a big deal that she's working on. And now I'm going to give you Chipper to tell you about his idea. Chipper won first place at the Innovation Challenge. His idea has traction, is moving forward, and again, it's a big deal that a student right now is developing a business that could really impact the area. So.
Thanks, Professor Perez. He gave me a little bit of, I think, of a big introduction there. But my name is Chipper Stemkowski. I'm a senior management major from Stetson University. So happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. The system that I developed is called Your CE Tracker, and it's a system for professionals, no matter the industry, who have to hold some kind of professional certification or accreditation just to show up and do their day job. Because right now, individuals are expected to get their certifications, and they're expected to maintain those certifications. And the managers are completely out of the loop to know if their employees are certified or if their certification is current. Your CE Tracker creates a conversation between the manager, the employee, and the accrediting association. That way everyone's on the same page, and we ensure no one is working without a certification under their name. I already have traction with the system, and it's running with the Boy Scouts of America right now. It's powering their online merit badge system, which we deployed almost exactly 2 months ago, and we've had some great feedback from the BSA, and now that we've had that feedback and the system is developed, we're launching it to the professional market. Thank you very much.
So we're so excited about this program, and I'm not sure how many of you were aware, but this has been going on for quite some time within our county, and we thought it was a great opportunity today to just celebrate. since it was just done last month, right? So, all right. I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor for today's breakfast. You all know the CEO Business Alliance and Kent Sharple, so that's why I didn't introduce you earlier. And Kent will be coming up in a couple minutes to talk about the CEO Business Alliance and introduce our speaker for the day. But first, I'd like to provide the quarterly update. And I promise you, they only gave me 10 minutes, so it's not going to be as painful as it could be. I'm going to focus just on a few slides today, primarily dealing with talent and our workforce as a whole, since that seems to be the topic that we're reading in every business journal and every article about the economy right now. So any of you who are more interested in the deeper dive in the data, like I am, see me afterwards. I can talk for hours if you'll let me. But real quick, just so you can see our population trend, we wanted to show it in relation to what's going on around the community regionally. The orange is Volusia County, and you can see we've been having really nice steady growth over the past 40 years rather than big jumps. No real lows, no super highs, just nice and steady. And if you look at our communities surrounding us, Orange County, Lake County, St. Johns County, 43% growth just year over year. They have hit some really steep slopes. And then there's the three, Brevard, Volusia, and Seminole, who've been doing just nice and steady, which is positive because we can keep up with that level of growth. If you take a look, this will give you the breakdown within our county of where we're seeing the higher percentages as well as the greatest population growth. It's all in the books you have, so like I said, I'm not going to delve too deep into this data, but it is in the booklet at your seat. It's interesting to see the differences in the communities, though. And then with respect to workforce, I did want to mention the Florida's minimum wage. We haven't seen an impact of the minimum wage changes yet, but I think over the next 2 years, we'll see that affecting our economy more and more, just to make everybody aware of where the numbers are. And that's in your booklet also. All right, so labor force. This is a great slide because what it shows is that Volusia County really is coming out of the pandemic doldrums, right? Whoops, sorry, I meant to hit the pointer. So you can see unemployment is at 4.3, but total available workforce in our county has never been higher than it is right now. So while many of your businesses may be experiencing difficulty finding workforce, it's not from a lack of employees within the county. They're there. And you can see our unemployment rate is only 4.3, so the employed labor force is at a high equal to what it was before COVID. What's different is that there are winners and losers with respect to industry. So if you look at this chart, it breaks down year over year the growth or decline of employment based on industry sector within our community. And what we found was, since COVID was just last year, the quarter from 2020 really isn't a good baseline to work from. So we added in the 2019, which is something we haven't done in the past. And that's the pre-COVID numbers. So if you look, it looks, whoops, dang it, I keep doing that, sorry. It looks like leisure and hospitality has done really well, and it's grown by 2,600 employees year over year. But if you look in 2019, we're still over 2,000 lower with respect to employees than we were pre-COVID. So they've taken a hit. But then you look at the professional services, year over year, they've had a 1,200 employee increase, which is higher than what they were in 2019. So this is one of the winners with respect to the changes that have happened as a result of COVID. They're actually showing 1,000 employees more than they were showing in 2019. They didn't have as big of a hit during COVID, obviously, because so many people worked from home or were able to separate themselves, unlike the leisure. Okay, I just got the 5-minute warning already. So there were winners and losers, and so what we're seeing is not that we don't have the workforce, it's that the same way that our businesses kind of pivoted during COVID to make their numbers work and adjust to the situation. So did our residents. A lot of them, when they were laid off or there were shutdowns because of the pandemic, they transitioned to other employment and are staying there or have stayed within that field, or they've taken classes and changed their career path. If you look at our unemployment, you've got COVID in there as a mountain, but you've got the yellow line there indicates Florida's unemployment, and the line that's directly underneath it is Volusia. We are right in line with what we're seeing on a state basis. So overall, our county is in really good shape after COVID with respect to the economy and how we're turning things around. This is another depiction that shows the box at the bottom shows Volusia County's available labor and employed labor year over year. Florida's is next to it, and you can see the numbers are higher in Florida, but the percentages are right there, right in line where we are. So we're really sitting well. We do have a breakdown in the booklet, by the cities within the county. I'm not going to go into that, but again, I'm more than happy to talk for hours after this. The same thing with the residential and construction permits or commercial construction permits. You can see we've obviously had a huge increase in the residential within our community, and that doesn't show any signs of reduction in the near future. This breaks it down again by city. The new commercial construction, we are seeing new permits coming in and new growth broken down here by the city as well. But I can tell you, we still need more commercial buildings to be constructed and spec buildings to be put out there. We've got Team Volusia here. We've got all of the city economic development practitioners here spread through the table. You can search them out, and they'll all tell you they're looking for buildings so that we can bring new businesses in. Redevelopment permits are also happening. They're a little bit less because we're starting to see that there isn't as much inventory there. And the redevelopment permits, you have to have a minimum of a $10,000 project going on. All right, so now real quick, talk about the pipeline of workforce. Our graduation and degrees within the county this year, we're seeing high school, post-secondary, and associate. We've got 11,000 degrees between 2021, and then higher degrees, we've got 3,700. You can see engineering and science is right up there in our top numbers. But this is the slide that is in your book that I want you to take some time and really look at. This is a great indicator of the fact that our education system, our economic development system, and our students are all lined up with where we're going in the future. If you look at the majority of the degrees out there, engineering, science, mathematics, aviation, technology, audiovisual, computer-aided design, automotive technician, agriculture. These are all the things that we're seeing more degrees in, and it's where our economy is going. So we're creating that pipeline that we need for our businesses to be able to succeed. So it's something we should be really happy about. And then we've got Daytona State here as well, Frank's here, and they've got custom programs, as you all know, that can be massaged to accommodate any workforce needs for any of the businesses in the area. So I've rushed through my presentation, but I made my time. I'm getting a thumbs up, despite my issue with my slides. And now I'd like to introduce Ken Sharples from the CEO of Business Alliance, who's a good friend, and he's going to come up and give everybody a little overview of the Alliance, and then introduce our guest speaker, Ken Sharples.
Thank you. You did a good job. Thank you, Helga. And first things first, did you enjoy your breakfast? Yes. I want you to know I got up soon this morning to scramble those eggs and fry those potatoes. I hope you really enjoyed them. But no kidding, thanks to the airport kitchen staff. They do if you want a good meal, come out here sometime because they really do a great job. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce our guest speaker. First of all, let me say a couple of things about Space Florida. It's a little bit confusing, I think, to some people because it's such a unique organization. It is not an EDC, it's not an Economic Development Corporation, although it does play an extremely important role in any work we do in recruiting any aerospace business into the state of Florida. But I'm going to read to you just a sentence or two here from their opening lines in their webpage. It was created back in 2006 by Jeb Bush, who was governor at that time, with special legislation. And it was created as an independent special district that uniquely serves as a single point of contact for all space-related functions of the state of Florida and serves the civil, military, and commercial sectors. So they have that unique opportunity to provide financing, and I know that Howard will get into that as he discusses in detail what goes on. So it's my pleasure then to introduce Howard Haug. He is one of two people that report to the board of Space Florida. Frank was not able to be here this morning due to a family commitment as well, but Howard's a guy that puts these deals together. From a financial standpoint, Howard's a guy that has his finger on the pulse of every business that's aerospace related that comes to the state of Florida. He joined the organization in 2008, and he serves now as Executive Vice President, Treasurer, and Chief Investment Officer for the company. As such, he's responsible for oversight of Space Florida's assets and investments, which I'm sure he'll talk about. They've grown significantly in the last few years. His expertise really is in financial management, reporting, controls, management expertise, and he's been successful in the design of competitively profitable business models, and he's recognized for combining financial, strategic planning, and operational experiences with executive leadership, and his experience in mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, public placements, SEC reporting, and growth initiatives. And I've never seen a guy that could take a business plan of the financials from any business and analyze it in about 5 minutes the way he can. He's very quick at that and does it well. He was independent director of Otelco, which is a publicly traded NASDAQ company that owned independent telephone companies in 6 states before they were sold. In 2003 to 2007, Howard was Senior Vice President of Administration and CFO for Enterprise Florida, an organization we all know well. And before that, he worked for Bell South, which is now AT&T, from 1989 to 2002. He spent his last 2 years as a financial expert for the company's overall strategic planning efforts. So you see he's got this wonderful background in planning for financial movement forward of any company. And at Bell South and Enterprise Florida, he held key positions with leading international professional services firms such as Coopers & Lybrand, now PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Ernst & Young. Howard has a Master's of Accountancy and a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from the University of Central Florida, as well as a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Villanova University. He's also a licensed CPA. It's my pleasure to introduce you, and would you give him, please, a warm welcome, Howard Haug.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's get the slides. I see the mic's working. I appreciate immensely you all coming out in the rain. Can everybody hear me? Mary, can you let me know when there's maybe 5 minutes left to take any questions? But I would encourage you, as I go through these slides, if you have a question, please ask them. I'll try to read the audience. I don't do a lot of these speeches like this, but I do pitch a lot for capital. And so if this sounds like a sales pitch, it is. Okay? I'm going to start off with just a little bit about Space Florida 101. I think Kent hit on it pretty well. I think most of you are in business, government. You know what a C corporation is, or an S corp, which is defined by Internal Revenue Code. Corporations got emissions, got shareholders. You know what the nonprofits are, which are entities that are created for typically public good. There is no shareholders. IRS looks at them, classifies them as a 501, got 30 numbers you can pick from there. Space Florida, as Kent described it, is essentially a politically created corporation. It has a mission, okay? So it looks like a business, it acts like a business. Its governance, which I'll explain quickly, is kind of run as a business. But its mission is the growth of the aerospace industry in Florida. It's the first company I've ever worked for that has financial statements that look like a for-profit. I encourage you to read them. If you do, they do look a lot like a 10K, though the risk assessments are not in there. But yet the most important metric is not in those financials. okay? And that metric is the growth of the industry. And I'll talk about how that's measured. From a governance standpoint, the people that created this corporation were unbelievable. The bylaws are essentially the statute. It has the powers, the responsibilities, and the duties. All we did, I came a couple of years later, used to coming into a company and looking for the instructions. You go to the bylaws, and looked at the bylaws, and oh my God, this is complex. I've never seen anything like this. Asked, does anybody know how this works? No. So we figured it out, you know, and it's, I think for many of you that have gotten close to Space Florida, you'll know that the bylaws follow things like ports, industrial ports, airports. All right, so all we did was start looking at what they did and how they promoted their operation. Whoever tailored this for Florida really knew what they were doing, but I could not find anybody until about 3 or 4 years later as the industry took off. Did I go quiet? Yeah, sorry. As the industry took off, we're riding a wave. All of a sudden, I met all 5,000 creators of Space Florida that would come and say, yeah, I did it. And I was saying, well, where were you when I needed help on how this thing works? We did overlay some governance on it. Governance is how you conduct business. There's a requirement, obviously, for a board. Our connection to the state is our board is appointed by the legislators. We're on a performance contract with the state, DEO, that comes through appropriations. So the governance was set up essentially like a small cap, a mid-capitalized business, traded. We followed Sarbanes-Oxley outlines, developed systems that have the checks and balances, and we model what we do in terms of disclosure in addition to everything that you're typically required to do with sunshine and public record. We model kind of what a public company does. We have committees that are working committees with the board. Much of our philosophies, positions, policies are documented, come up through the board. All deals come up through the board. Contracts that we enter that are over 100,000 come through the board. So I just wanted to give you a flavor for that. There's 2 divisions in Space Florida. There's one, this is coming out of the bylaws, there's one that is the Spaceport Systems Authority for the state of Florida. All right, and what that's focused on is primarily working with the various spaceports, and there's several in the state, as many of you may know, Air Force, Kennedy Space Center, Titusville, Cecil Field. There's a process for that, both at the state level, federal level, primarily the FAA. And then there's the business development side, all right, which has the financing tools that have been used for decades, like things with ports in airports. The best way to describe this, and I'm always careful because I'm a salesman who has an accounting degree, so I have a tendency to talk in the accounting terms. The substance of the deals are off-balance sheet financing. Got a lot of young people in here, so I don't have to worry about explaining what Enron was. But for those of you all that remember Enron, they did something called off-balance sheet cheating, okay, which sort of tainted that whole process. So said simply, we're able to deal with companies by taking their CapEx, their interest in equipment or facilities, off their balance sheet as a financing responsibility. It's still on the financials. Used to be in the notes. We do it via an operating lease. Used to be in the notes. Now the leases are required to be on the balance sheets, but it's off balance sheet financing. What this allows us to do is to remove that responsibility of generating all that cash up front. They use their cash to grow and build their business, okay? And for us to do this for you, all you got to do is bring your business to Florida and do it here in Florida. As a special district, subcomponent, politically created corporation, we're immune from taxes, income taxes, property taxes, and you'll see how that plays into effect in a minute. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what the business is like. It's a little complex, though I think the people that designed it, the Jeb Bushes and all before I got there, really had a sense of trying to make sure it would be clear to the market. especially those that could take advantage from this. So on that sort of lesson you've got, we'll do an update. Let me tell you what's going on in the industry. There's only about 10, maybe 12 graphs. So global space revenue, about 450 billion now. Used to be high 30s, 300 something when I got here. The bulk of that is satellite TV. So included in that is anybody that's paying that 50, 60 bucks to Charlie Ergen at Dish or DirecTV, old AT&T. A big part of that's there. The growth since, let's say, 2008 has been more and more new services. So probably the biggest trend on attracting capital into the space, and there'll be times I'll talk about aerospace, okay, which is obviously slightly different than hardware things going to space, has been when the federal government, not anything official, but just said, we're going to open up LEO. This is low Earth orbit. That means you get something up there about 250 miles. Space starts at about 62. See the accountant? Everything's numbers. It stays in orbit, okay? They've opened it up for commercial development. You know, and NASA's moved on to doing some other things, even though they still have the space station there. And as you see, there's another space station in planning, coming commercially. And it's attracted satellites. The trend in electronics, satellites got smaller and smaller, more functionally powerful. Innovations around launching things to space got cheaper and cheaper. When I got here, couldn't find anybody could tell me what it cost to get a pound of something on orbit. Well, back in those days, we finally figured it out. We just went after it the way Wall Street would have gone after it in an analysis. It was about $4,800 to get a pound from here to LEO. Right now, those guys are trying to get it down to $1,000 a pound. And they've got frequent, reliable launching. So the change is people are pursuing, you'll see this a little later, is broadband growth. The appetite for broadband is insatiable. I've been around broadband since 85, 86, after divestiture at AT&T. Never saw this coming. I don't think anybody, none of us here saw it. And this ability of satellites to provide broadband capability is going to start to really not only meet that demand, but always seems to happen as more broadband becomes available. Commerce happens that was never anticipated. Without broadband, I don't think Facebook or streaming services or Amazon would have gotten to where they are. 50,000 satellites. That's a lot. Okay? That is SpaceX, Starlink. That is Amazon's coming. Okay? Think about that. Amazon. Almost everybody here has an Amazon device in their house. Just think when that device can connect directly with space. Plus, the ability to have eyes in the sky at LEO is gathering just vast amounts of data, really a lot of data. And they're trying to figure out how to best use that. Tracking, weather, environmental monitoring, it's just huge. Launches, worldwide, over 100. About 40 are happening in the United States. You'll see that 31 out of those happen just a little bit south of here. Gross tonnage, which we're now starting to measure, which is pretty key. And I kind of stole the bottom right from the start that people say, well, what's going on with this? It's people chasing the opportunities for broadband. This is a recently announced deal that we've been involved in. This is territorial. And I put this up here for a couple reasons. I'm not going to read it. I know adults read a lot better and quicker than I can. Pretty good with 4-year-olds, but this is a little different. I put it up here for two reasons. One is this company with 2,100 jobs and the supply chain that's going to follow it is going to come up through Volusia. The growth we're starting to see is not south. It's not even really west. It's starting to come up this way. Now, these guys haven't yet broke ground. They're hiring up. They've got some rental facilities where they're getting started. They essentially manufacture a variety of satellites. They're agile in it. They will become a key supplier. And eventually, what you're seeing is anybody that was in the rocket business beginning and then in the satellite business is now also trying to figure out how to get into the services business. Services that have space-based assets that service the Earth. In other words, they're coming after the mass market. So this company will evolve to that. The other reason I put it up there was to give you guys some sense of how long the sales cycle is on this. Been in a few industries. This has a very long sales cycle. First time we contacted those guys, 6 years ago. They were in California. And what we do on the business side is we're looking for growth initiatives. Is there something new happening? I'll touch on a couple of things. Is a company telling people publicly, we're going to expand? Is there a merger and acquisition? Is there somebody buying somebody? We go after those because those usually require investment in facilities and equipment to do whatever they're doing. And that's kind of the sweet spot for us. We knew these guys way back when were looking to merge up, grow their business, and eventually it happened. So typical sales cycle for us, maybe a little less, 2 to 2.5, 3 years from the time we meet them until we have a deal. And then by the time all this gets done, it'll be a long time. And the other thing I'm going to have you think is about workforce. When people like me talk about workforce, these deals are typically a minimum of 20, 25-year commitment. There's some that go past 50, all right? So when they think about workforce, they're thinking about the generations of workforce flow they're going to need. They're thinking about how do my employees get retrained? How do I get that flow differently as the skill set requirements come different? All right, so Space Florida. Great news. 2-3 years ago, our growth just started to explode. You can see balance sheet growth there was $144 million. We carry certain assets on our balance sheet, so what it does, in 5 years, that's gone up to almost $321 million. Contracts open. All right, our contract is we got a deal. All right, so we enter a contract. You're coming here. You're going to grow your business here. And we're providing our structure, which you'll learn more about here. That's a contract. AR, which is our billing. These are contracts we already have that we're billing on. And the last thing is the infrastructure portfolio that we hold. That sits in the notes now for a variety of reasons that have to do with our ownership position, which is legal and equitable. The operator uses it absolute, which is a higher responsibility than a triple net for those in here that are familiar with that. But that was about a $400 million portfolio, which was essentially Launch Complex 41 when we got here. It's at $2.7 billion right now. So the entity owns a lot of assets legally and equitably that you see, but you probably don't know. You see Blue Origin stuff. Those assets probably owned by Space Florida. I know they are. Northrop Grumman, I can run through the list. This is huge advantages for these companies to use this. The pipeline, this is what we're working right now. The pipeline is at $3 billion. That's unbelievable. That took 10 years to get to 2.7, and now we got $3 billion in the pipeline. Scaling for growth, the challenge is, I think, if you know Space Florida, we're about 40 people in total, and about half of those are back office, accounting, billing, legal contracts, and the other half are people that we run the launch landing facility, we run a launch pad, we manage some facilities at some of the spaceports. But what I wanted to give here was a sense of what is happening in the industry. Venture capital's coming in, there's mergers starting to happen. When I first got here, one of the frustrating things is I've been around some emerging technologies. I remember when there was 100,000 cellular people in the whole country. I remember when we first started broadband. So I've seen those things evolve, and this is following a similar pattern. But what I wasn't seeing was at-risk capital coming in saying, I'm going to finance this business. I know it's at risk. I got no guarantee. And then the other one was mergers and acquisitions. I wasn't seeing companies that got to a point said, for me to go to the next level, I need to merge. I need to do something different. All of that has started to happen. So you'll see a lot of people talk about SPACs, have accelerated money into the space industry. That's true. There's some of that. I'm not a big fan of stacks. There are a variety of reasons, but we're going to have some winners out of this rush of financing, where companies that are in early stage have been able to raise a couple $100 million. I know everybody talks about billions of dollars in valuation, but that valuation is based on really thin trading. So you got to look at actually what the cash is. The things that we're looking for on capital, now we go to the market, we get capital from private and municipal markets. We raise it there, all right? And then we use that to build the assets for the client, all right? And then they pay lease payments for that, which pays for that debt. We're independent from the state. I'm not a state employee. That's why the organization is structured the way to keep it away from the state, so there's no recourse to the state. There's actually not recourse to any of the other assets on Space Florida's balance sheet. Those are the things that people like me have responsibility for. So we're now pursuing infrastructure funding. We never got much of that because those guys don't want to talk to you unless you're in the $1 billion or above. And we're now looking at other capital funds, whether it's private equity, and I'll close quickly with a chart on that at the end. Our need for capital is important. Big key down to the bottom, competition from other states. We are not alone. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this chart. I know you guys are reading. What I want you to look at is that graphic, all right? You see all those dots and those colors? That's our competition, just in this country. You wouldn't believe what China's doing, South America, okay, Europe. We do have a natural competitive advantage. Location, location, location. Florida, you shoot out over the ocean. You're close to the equator. So where are we going? Space Florida. We continue to do what we're doing, which is going after those new businesses, growth businesses, getting them to base their operations here. We'll go wherever we have to get them, other states, foreign countries, but we're also starting to finance things on orbit. This state, through this entity, was one of the first ones to finance a 3D printer, first asset, commercial asset, on orbit. And that 3D printer was making exotic fiber. So think of fiber optics. If it's made in a low gravity environment, the fiber is almost perfect. Can't do that terrestrially, just can't do it. Can't mention the importance of economic development entities with us. They are key. They are usually the first people that meet aerospace space companies looking for something. Very few come directly to us without already having knowledge of what's in the local community, which means a lot of the EDCs are doing their job. Those guys, when they start looking for it, they're getting the information they need, and we usually get them to show up and they tell them we're looking at 6 areas or 5 areas. We have to be neutral at it because what we do is we can do it anywhere in the state, can do it on orbit, all right? But that EDC relationship is very important. We don't have those feet on the street locally, don't have that relation, and there's a variety of things that company wants to know that we can't help them with. So we hope you guys use us as, here's one of the features I can bring to you. We're laying the groundwork for space project development participation, and I'll hit on that a little more, but that's kind of going through supply chain down through manufacturing, and you'll see a couple other things we're starting to pursue. The workforce growth, you guys hit on it here. You're hearing from me saying these companies are looking at workforce for many years, all right? And one of the quick things to say, when we first started doing some of this, people would argue, well, they're going to want to live in LA. It's a high-tech company, and that's where high-tech people live and live, work, and play. We found out we got a little bit of a competitive edge because a lot of these people maybe don't want that city, that environment. And when you can tell somebody they can live on 5 acres and have a horse and drive 20 minutes and get to their job without traffic, their eyes start popping, you know. And there's a segment that is very interested in living at the beach, living in a ranch, living in a farm, having a more area, not dealing with the traffic. So there's a lot of positives on it, but you got to deal with the objections that the companies bring up. I guess I'm not pointing right. Did it freeze? Can you drive?
There you go.
Okay, try that. All right. Being the way we're governed, we do a retreat with the board. All this is open public. We get some people that come in, some give us some feedback, which is pretty good. I dealt with a lot of public companies, both on a director, auditor, and the people we get to show up some of our key meetings is about equal to what you would get at a public company meeting when they're announcing their stock or performance, year performance. The growth initiatives, go through this fast. This is looking from where we are now to where we want to target in 2030. That portfolio I was telling you about, the $2 billion, we wanted it $10 billion. Moved the rank of the state aerospace space workforce from 7th place to 4. And you can pretty well figure out the big players in your head. The infrastructure, for lack of a better description for that, is here. The schools. You saw what was up on the board earlier. Embry-Riddle here. I mean, it's quite a source of it around the states, the university. Drive, achieve market perception and reality of Florida as an aerospace capital center. That's important. Capital. How do we get there? I can go there because I can get access to funding, financing. And this is financing in the markets. This is not grants or all the things that are important, but this is not what we do. This is going to the market where they have responsibilities to not only pay it back, but to perform at certain levels. And we're figuring out ways to expand that. There is the nuances starting with that as more and more the markets, people from New York, California, the financial markets, Chicago, start showing up in Florida. They're bringing their firms with them. And then increasing capital management and investment responsibility, which is, it's very key for us in the eyes of the financial markets for them to see that this is an independent entity because it says it's an independent entity. So they want to know exactly how it works, exactly how recourse occurs, all of that. And the more we can keep that very clear and not have other things coming in to affect the entity, the better we'll do on raising capital. I'll be quick on this. This is the market analysis. This one's 2020. Those little eggs there are proportionately sized and they're overlaid if the market's overlay. And you can see the color differences that we expect, or we're projecting the growth from this period to that period. Those are like aerospace training, manufacturing, MOR, spacecraft, launch providers, human space flight, in-space services, space resources. Another one that's growing is space-based energy generation. So the future target markets, next generation aviation platforms, VTOLs, vertical takeoff, landing, okay? Quite a wave of those potentially coming. We've seen things supposedly coming in the past, didn't make it. This one, I think there's some there. It'll be curious to how that grows. Plus, more and more stuff done on orbit. Computing will be done on orbit. Data storage will be done on orbit. We're seeing more advanced robotics and advanced intelligence. And what this means is like an MRO is a maintenance repair overhaul, if you don't know what that is. Essentially, aircraft comes in, gets rebuilt every so many years. They're really at a point now when they come in, they're advancing them. And they're using robots to assess the aircraft. So instead of eyes looking for what's wrong, you've got really high tech looking at what's happening. And then the advanced intelligence is that it's able to process some of the things and think it through. I've already hit this on space-based services, the growth, bandwidth, data storage up there, not coming back till you need it, or it's up there and it's processed and it comes back in a usable form. More and more interest in trying to figure out how energy can be developed, generated up there, but brought back terrestrially. And then the last one's the one that gets a lot of press, which is the habitat and destinations. I want to go to space, or, I want to stay in a capsule. The last is kind of recurring on seeing what was happening in the markets. So how are we getting to where we are today to where we want to go? The growth is going to be commercial space markets. The government can only fund so much. It has lots of challenges in terms of demands of what it's supposed to do and limited resources to do what it's doing. There'll be DOD, there'll be NASA, but NASA's doing more exploration stuff. Modernization, you see the infrastructure, that's key. Probably the key point I want to mention is Florida's the only state in the country for decades has treated space as a mode of operation in its Department of Transportation planning. Then you saw what I talked about there before. I would do this quickly. 2 space units, the Spaceport Business Unit. There's 1.26 billion is in the pipeline. You'll see that's 49 leads. These are separate numbers, 21 opportunities, 7 closings, to give you an idea of the volume of the business we're doing. You're probably scanning some of the other stuff. You see hopefully it'll generate a question. The corporate development, which is essentially outside of spaceport property, so this is everything else we do around the state, is 1.55 billion. All of our growth over and above what we're able to do at spaceport is happening outside that. It's happening up in the here, over the Panhandle, down in Tampa. And this is the division that's responsible for the access to capital. 33 leads. Those are qualified leads that we're working through the deals. Opportunities, 34. We're going through documents, raising the capital, and then closings is the 4. This is the last slide. The big change on how we attract more to the state, ramp up what we're doing, but scale it to where we get much growth at the top, but not big in expense, is to expand these other sources of capital. So I'll close with that. See if you all have any questions, any comments. Thank you.
Howard, I have a question. What key workforce and education metrics do we need to have ready for your customers, your clients, when they come to Stetson?
First of all, their recruiting needs of workforce, good question, is huge. So it goes all the way from $40,000, I'll call them somewhat skilled workers, and those have pretty good numbers. To start to work up for, are they certified, which is usually they're trained to do something with equipment, or some certification if it's something that's terrestrial aircraft, some FAA. So there's a series of training on the space industry, aerospace. It's capital intense. I mean, the world I came from is driven by software and networks. This is hugely capital intense, so you're making stuff. So that let's say that workforce, ideal person is essentially like a technician, and those jobs will work their ways up into the 70s or 80s. Then there's the engineers, the problem solvers, the ones that have to do the operation. And the operations are huge challenges for these companies. When you think about what they're doing, most of them we deal with, I'm making 10 satellites a year. That's great. Let's see how you do it. All right, can you make 100? Can you make 1,000? Those are huge challenges to get up to that level. So that's when the other skill sets start to show up. Project management, procurement experts, people that know how to do the basic blocking and tackling, a 3-way match. What did I order? What did I get? Am I getting billed for what I all did there? Everybody goes, that's not that hard. When you're doing 10,000 of them a day, you got a challenge. So that part there. On the business side, this is commercial. Sell, sell, sell. You got to have sales. You've got to have the management for that, the marketing. As you saw, it's competitive, and it's going to get more competitive. So you got to have the marketing, and then just the typical executive skills from legal clerks, accountants, accounting staff, CFO types, HR people, because this will always be a recruiting challenge. I came out of the communication world, and I remember, in the late 80s, we're 300 people behind on our hire plan. I remember 2003, we're 400 people behind on our firing plan. We never caught up, And that's going to happen here, okay? Plus these supply chains, when they come, they're looking for workforce too. That gets a little more specialized. So you have a lot of things here that are positioned well. You've got Daytona State, you've got Embry-Riddle, you've got things coming out of the high schools. You've got a reputation for the workers do work. You guys have publicly traded companies based here. I came out of Atlanta. At one point, there were 17 in all of Georgia. You've got 2. One that was public, one private. That's unbelievable. Why is that important? There's an infrastructure that's used to dealing with those kind of companies, how they have to report to the SEC, deal with the IRS, get capital access. have those skill sets that come to do all the things that are needed for that. And these companies here, they're aspiring at some point to go public in some way, shape, or form. They need an infrastructure that's here for that, you know, at that side. That's just one of the multiple sides. The bulk of it, it's going to be the workers, that technician kind of engineering level.
So if you have a question, please raise your hand. They'll bring a mic to you. So
So in addition, economic developers in the room, you have a lot of public leaders and private sector leaders. With what you've seen out there in the communities that are succeeding and attracting the companies that then you can come help land, what do we need to do in Volusia County to be more competitive? What would you advise us to do and make our investments to get ready?
A big part of selling the companies to come here is beyond what we do. So I'd be foolish to try to comment on things you need to work on, because it'd just be my opinion, and that's one opinion I don't trust. You've got a good place to live. You've got diversity. That's pretty key for these companies, because they're at a point right now where they're vertically integrated, and they need all of that. You know, it's not like maybe in Atlanta where it's only maybe the executive staff and the regional salespeople. One of the biggest keys is they look at the infrastructure, the roads, where's the corridors. The corridors are utility. We're talking power, water, sewer, broadband, and commodities. What's he talking about? A lot of this is going to go to liquid natural gas, okay? So there's going to be a constant updating of technology. There's a lot of work being done to eventually get to hydrogen. So the ability to generate and move that stuff around for the businesses will be important. But it's also important for, you know, the residential and the support for the residential. You know, the measurement, we talked about the growth of the economy. We use what the state and I guess a lot of local communities do, the in-plan or the REMI model. And it's got an indirect component and an imputed component for the direct labor you got. Those two other components are always much larger than that direct. So you got to keep an eye on, is the infrastructure there? This is a bad example, but when I first came, it's not a space guy, you know, so, I mean, that was like cold air hitting hot air with, you know, that going on. So I'm in Brevard. I started out, I had the responsibility for CFO, and I'm trying to wire money. Well, I came from places, including Orlando and here, where wiring money was a phone call, double cent. I had to get in a car, drive to a local bank, meet an officer, show them my ID, and then we wired money. That's much better now down there, but there's an example of what can I do in this area. Back to the level of companies you guys have. You have regional, you got locals. Local business are key because the people that support them can support the bigger ones. You got regional, which is just those outputs, and then you got the publicly traded. All those things I just described are here. I know they're here somewhere, but I couldn't find that initially. I was in an area that pretty much relied on government contracts for decades. So everybody was a government contractor. And you know, most of those corporations weren't headquartered there. So if I went to Melbourne, it's different, or I came to Daytona, it was very different. So there was a lot of stuff I was doing business-wise. I got a car and drove here, you know. So I wish I could help you better.
Yes, good morning. Jay Suarez. I come from Miami and I'm an investor. And I honestly believe that you guys got so much stuff over here that's underutilized. And as far as money, they're throwing money at everything down south. You know, I mean, if you focused a little bit, I got people that don't even know what to do with the money. So, and somehow I think that if for some reason they don't look at this place as a place. I do. I've bought a bunch of stuff over here already, and it works. And you guys are really on the market. So I'm more or less a comment that I think that maybe you should focus on a lot of that Miami money, because my friends alone are bringing in millions over here.
I think that's a great suggestion. The capital I'm talking here, we're trying to figure out how to get the right connection.
These guys don't know anything, that none of this stuff is going on. And they don't, you know, all they know is that they want to return on their money.
Mhm.
you know, and they want an upside. And some of these people are putting their money in because what do you get in the bank? $1. You get less than 1 point. So if you have a whole bunch of millions of dollars, you know, and I honestly, if you put it here and you do nothing but just leave it here, it's going to grow.
We're statewide.
Yeah, but
Well,
what
so
I'm
we
saying,
do have-
But what I'm saying is the northern part of Florida that we're in right now,
Yeah.
this part right here, this part, and the northern part of the state as well. But once you go like Tampa and all that, that's pretty much already, you know, that's.
We have several deals in Tampa. You are absolutely
No, but what
right.
I'm saying is that the money's easier over there because people already Tampa, Orlando, Fort Myers, Miami, you know,
Yeah.
we don't have to talk about those. But this place is really undermarketed, I believe,
I do too.
you know, just a comment.
Yeah,
All right.
I do. It's marketing, I agree, it's tough. At the end of the day, anything we do is the state of Florida. You know, it's not space Florida, it's state of Florida.
But,
You
you know,
know.
we're right next to Cape Canaveral. I mean, we're here. You can see the
Yeah.
rockets go up. I mean, you guys got infrastructure. You got an airport that kind of goes nowhere. You know, I mean, it's kind of like this place is it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the quicker that you let people know that, hey, we're here. I mean, not that I want a whole bunch of these people here anyway, but
I think what you're saying is balance. We need a balance. Look, we agree with you. We're trying to figure out more and more how to attract the capital for what we do. We have deals with investors like you, individuals, all the way through. Miami's a big, huge financial center. That's a good comment. The economy in Florida, my number may be a little old, you may know. So the gross product of Florida is running close to $1 trillion a year. Trillion! You know, I'm throwing billions up here, and that looks like a big number. It's not. This is a beast, this economy here. It's huge. And we're just trying to fit into it and, you know, figure out how to do it. We'd love to have all the money raised here. You know, they have to come here to deal with us because we're not going to New York for the close, or we did too much New York. We're over that. They are. So we're looking for your firm, your money firm here. And we're seeing that happen. But that's happening just because of the size of the economy and the diversity.
Good morning. So what I'm hearing you say is we need to focus on infrastructure.
That is a component.
A strong component, and here in Volusia County, that's a strong discussion item for those of us here in the room that know where investments need to occur to keep us moving forward, because it is moving up north, but we also know that it's a regional approach, right? Regional is the new local.
The companies look at the region.
Absolutely. There's no gateway from Brevard to Volusia County. There's no borders here. There's no borders in space on land as we're going forward. But can you talk a little bit about your unique opportunity as a special district with financing, because that's also a word here. I know that we've walked through a couple other approaches here in Volusia with incentives, and people say that's a bad word. And so looking at this regional approach and infrastructure and trying to track corporations, everything moving up, these are things that we as a county have got to address and be comfortable with moving forward. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Yeah, let me, so I'm going to start I have way more business experience than kind of experience in this entity in that area. When we brought markets, and you heard Val South, so at one time I was the CFO over the cellular operation all over South. We stayed away from incentives, okay? We were interested in workforce, so anything that could happen with workforce, that was something we pushed for. The reason we stayed away from incentives is they're complex, and the reason you're coming is usually because you love the market. There's some reason to come here. So you're trying to figure out how to optimize that in the market. And I think the EDCs do a good job of understanding what they're after in the market. We conduct, because of what we do, we conduct several levels of due diligence only for our purpose. When people meet us at Space Florida, they're so disappointed that we're not space and aviation guys. They're meeting accountants and lawyers and clerks. So we're really trying to figure out what it is that we can get to glue them, because it's not one thing, it's multiple things. And you know, an incentive has a tendency to attract all the attention. Oh, look, I got capital. You got capital that's a portion. We're going to be here for decades. How are we going to get capital? How are we going to get the people? So that's the point there. The infrastructure that we're hitting on, that's just very important for any growth. The roads, the common utilities, and that's important to the supply chain, to the company itself. But understand why they're here. Somebody just telling you off the top of your head, you don't want to be here because you're close to the launch pad. No, there's something else. And you start talking to the executives, you'll find out there's other reasons. That's neat, but there's other reasons. And once you get those, I think you figure out how to deal with it. Point to the things you have. I never wanted to be the first guy out. You wanted to be the second or third, so you started to look for, are there other entities like me? Is there other entities here that grew? Well, they did it. We should be able to do it. What do we need? I got what you're talking about when I look at this area, and I guess I have to disclose this. I am a resident. Okay.
Well, not to mention the quality of life.
That's up there. It's definitely different. Airport, I got you on really goes nowhere, but it goes to Atlanta. Hell, to me, that's entrance to the world. It goes to Charlotte. 2 major roads, 95, I-4, a key rail line. Whoa, you're starting to see a lot of things. You can grow west here, you can grow north, you can grow south.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The growth here is not even touched. I don't think so. I think that, in other words, like if you were a bodybuilder, this place would have so much to grow. It's like incredible.
Right. I think you're right. Businesses, they'll tell you what they want, and they want to grow where they fit. So that's again, the EDC's helping with that. And I think is the businesses that we deal with come here, the one thing we're making sure is that working to understand the alternatives and what we can do and point out on that. But we're pretty much just the structure, on that business development side other than the spaceport. There is some investment we make in spaceport and common infrastructure. Well, I thank you all. It's a rare opportunity for me to get out here where I don't have to close before I go to the car. Because usually when I do, my phone starts ringing. Did we get it? Did we get it? Since I don't have to sell here yet. But on that note, if any of you got a lead, I need 2 leads a day. So I'd love to hear anybody you got. A lead to us is never dead. We're patient, okay, on selling. And I guess we tell people we have access to capital. The bad news is we're going to do due diligence on you, and we're going to find out whether all of this will work. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. How great was that? I mean, what we're hearing from all standpoints right now is that we really are on the cusp of some amazing things in this county, and it's exciting to be part of it, and it's wonderful to have all of you here to talk about it and to learn about it and to do more. So Howard, thank you so much for the information. Spacebar is just an amazing tool in our state. With that, I'm going to thank you all for coming. I'm going to close out the event, but I did have a request for a public announcement. So Bliss, if you want to take a second.
Good morning, Bliss Jamison, Southeast Volusia Manufacturing and Technology Coalition. Did you hear me? Next Tuesday, November the 9th, Space Florida, Todd Romberger is coming and going to be speaking about the future of space in Southeast Volusia, what it means for jobs, the economy, and the lagoon. So if you have time, please come join us. Thank you.
Thanks. This will be another great event because it's a kind of taking where we are today and taking to that next level of understanding of what can happen in our county. So it's a nice pairing, not a marriage. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for coming, and I appreciate it.